Hi all, Andy here and welcome back to the channel where I'm back with an old friend. This car is currently being used as a daily driver and look at the state of it. It's filthy. Anyway, enough of that car. Let's take it for a drive and reminisce what's been going on this year for the Audi TT Mark 1, maybe open some Christmas presents, and then also talk about what's coming up next year on the show scene for the Audi TT Mark 1. I personally want to send a big thanks to every single one of you out there that has watched, liked and subscribed the anti-charger videos during the last year, and your support is very much appreciated. What I do is made worthwhile by reading the comments from all of you guys and girls out there. There is more great content coming next year, and once again I want to thank you for supporting me this year on the channel. Right, let's get this roof down because it may be December, but if you're going to own a Roadster, you've got to take this car out in all weathers with the roof down, no matter what time of year it is. So let's get going. Feels so good to be back inside the Roadster once more. Now, what better way to spend a Saturday afternoon just before Christmas than taking your Roadster out in the fresh air. One of the great benefits of driving an Audi TT Mark 1 Roadster is with the wind deflector and the windows up, there doesn't seem to be much wind noise, or no more wind noise than when the roof is up. So you can talk quite freely and easily with your passengers if you've got one, and it really is a great fun car to drive. Those of you that are long-standing channel members may think I had completely forgotten about this car, but oh no, it's been a workhorse at home for the family. It's been our daily driver and it's been completely faultless. That is one of the features of the Audi TT Mark 1. I think to keep the car in tip-top condition, you need to keep driving it. Now that beep on the car means that it needs a bit of fuel, so I'm going to go in the garage and put some in. I wonder if I'm going to get any funny looks dressed like this. Well, it is Christmas. Little quick splash and dash. Probably worth noting the petrol cap has snapped off, so I need to get that changed out. I don't know how that's happened, because that's happened while I've been owning this car, and it wasn't me. Hello. Number 4 please.
2037.
Thank you. Feeling very festive today.
I don't blame you, we're trying hard as well.
Exactly, yeah. Merry Christmas to you. Take care. Even the lady in the garage had her Christmas jumper on. So looking back on 2024, we have had some great events already. For me, possibly the highlight of the year was going to Belgium, to Ypres, for the first international TT event. Now, this was the first one and it went really well. We had over 150 Audi TTs on display in Ypres at the Caddy Cars Museum. In fact, it was so popular, we're holding the 2nd edition of the TT International Show next April, on April the 12th, at Caddy Cars once more. So if you want to see the video highlights from the 1st edition that we held earlier this year in April, please do check out the video link above. And if you're interested in coming along and joining in the fun next April, then please do get in touch with me at the channel, or keep an eye out for upcoming videos or details on the Facebook groups. That same weekend in April of this year was the original date for Simply Audi, and if you've not been to a Simply Audi event down at the Beauty Motor Museum before, I highly recommend it. But the date was switched this year because the ground was waterlogged and it was held much later. Once again, it was a great attended event and a high proportion of Audi TTs on display, notably the Audi TT Addicts with one of the biggest stands on the day. Another great show that we've had this year has been the German Car Festival, and while that's not dedicated to Audi TTs, there was a fantastic selection of Audi TTs on display on the day. Again, if you want to check out that event on my channel, please do click the link above. There seems to have been a lot more local events happening this year, of which I've attended quite a few. This has been great because it's allowed more localised TT groups to get together and have a meet of their own without travelling the great distances. It does impact the attendance and the numbers that attend these events, but maybe having more events more frequently with less cars is the way forward. But we're now back at my house, so why don't we switch cars and talk about what's coming up on the event scene. That's better. Out of the cold and back indoors. Christmas is fast approaching, so I thought I'd open some gifts that I've been sent recently. I've had a couple of items sent through to me by the supplier Auxito to have a look at. One of which is this great battery pack and also floodlight for the car. You can also use it to jump start the car, so it's a jumper pack. Now you may recall from the channel that I've owned one of these before by a company called Topdon, and that was a great device, and I reckon I've jump started the car at least 100 times of various cars in the time I've had that. It stays charged, it's got enough juice in it to fire the car up a fair few times on one charge. However, it's got a feature on that one that you have to press the button to get an extra bit of charge for the 3.2, and you have to run around and start the ignition before it wears out, and you've only got a couple of seconds, so that's a bit of a challenge. But with this device, there's none of that, and I think that's because the battery is much stronger in a modern device. It's got this great full floodlight. It's got these couple of hooks on the back as well for hanging it up under your engine if you're working under the engine when it's quite dark. One opens up all the way so you can hang it up portrait mode, or it's got another hook that you can hang it up and adjust it and hang this up what I class as landscape. Great device. Now I've got another one of these coming to me from another supplier very shortly, and that has an extra feature where you can use it as a pneumatic device and inflate tyres. So think of it as a jump pack, tyre inflator and a light. That sounds great, so I'm looking forward to taking a look at that more closely and reviewing it on the channel. But again, the Auxito light and jump start pack, one I would recommend. Auxito have also sent me these LED lights, and I have started a review video on that, and it will be coming in the new year because we all know the Audi TT Mark 1 has fairly weak headlights as standard. They're getting quite old, and these LED replacements, which I'll open the box, they even come with this pair of lovely white gloves, so when you are handling the bulbs you don't touch them and get your greasy hands on them, which can cause the light to fail. If I take one out of the box to have a look at, look at that, that is a serious unit. And they are your xenon headlight replacement bulbs. They retail at about £50, but I think they're well worth it if they make a difference. But again, the proof is in the pudding, and that review video will let me compare these to a standard set of xenon headlights. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Something else I've been sent a few times by different manufacturers are these wonderful Apple CarPlay screens for the cars. Now this is a Minix one, which I have not yet reviewed on the channel, but it will be coming soon. I've had a few other different devices as well. CarPurade have sent me one, and I'm going to do a full review on all of these, which are classed as budget Apple CarPlay devices for the Audi TT Mark 1 to see which is the best. They have an array of different features, including reversing cameras, forward-facing cameras, obviously the Bluetooth connectivity for your phone, and they really are great devices and an ideal way of getting this technology into your car without removing the standard radio. So that is just some of the gifts I've received. So I think it's time to jump in the Coupe this time, and we take the 3.2 Papaya for a spin and talk about my various 3.2 journeys this year, which include the blue car and what happened to it, as well as talking about some of the great upcoming events on the calendar for the Audi TT Mark 1 in 2025. Let's get in that car. For those channel members that have been following me for over 6 months, you will know this 3.2 that I'm sitting in right now, the Papaya orange car, is not my first Audi TT Mark 1 3.2. No. Prior to this car, I owned a Mauritius blue car, which was my pride and joy. But when the opportunity came up to buy this car with half the miles on it for not an awful lot more money than I managed to get for selling the blue car, it was a no-brainer. I had to get this car. But of course, the main reason that we all want the 3.2 is that sound. So let's just take a listen to that. it just purrs like a kitten. So why don't we take this car for a drive and we talk about the 3.2s I've owned this year, and of course the upcoming events for 2025 for the Audi TT Mark 1. So if you go back 6 months, I was the proud owner of that Mauritius blue Audi TT 3.2 V6, and it was a great car. Now that 3.2, like most 3.2s, had its quirks, and it had let me down a couple of times last year. But since I'd had those niggles fixed on it last year, it's been pretty reliable. However, the bodywork did need some attention, and again, it was sitting at about 118,000 miles. So when the option to buy this 3.2 came along, I had no choice. The blue car had to go to make some space in the garage, and after a very quick sale and a bit of negotiation on this car, a week later I owned this great 3.2 Papaya Audi TT Mark 1. Because of its rarity, and it is one of 41 that was produced for the UK market, this car tends to live in the garage, and the reason for that is I feel it's going to be an appreciating classic one day, and because it's so low miles, I want to make sure it's kept in tip-top condition, so in the future it will be deemed as a classic. One thing I've noticed for the Papaya over the Mauritius car is it's a real head turner, not only for TT owners but for the general public. When you're driving this car, you get an awful lot of looks and people coming up and asking you about the car, which I didn't think would happen, but it does. Talking of shows, let's look forward to the 2025 show season. And that all starts off in January. Now, there are only a couple of meets on that I'm aware of in January, but I'm happy to share those details with you. And the first one is on the 18th of January, Saturday the 18th of January, and that is being held at the Stag in Challock, down here in Kent. I've organised this meet so that the people in the southeast have got somewhere to go with their cars at the start of the year. If you've not been to the Stag, then I recommend checking out one of my previous Stag videos, which I will leave linked above. And it is a really good venue for petrol heads and a fantastic breakfast. I highly recommend getting yourself along to the Stag on the 18th of January at 9 AM to catch up with me and many other local TT owners. On the very next day, on Sunday the 19th of January, there is also an event at Podium Place. Again, this starts at 9 AM and has been organised by Nick Clark from the TT Addicts. More details can be found on the Facebook page for the TT Addicts, and I highly recommend checking that venue out also, because it too is a really great place for breakfast and meeting up with like-minded TT folk. In fact, just before New Year's Eve, on Sunday the 29th of December, there is also an event that's taking place at Caffeine and Machine. But of course, the action doesn't stop in January. No, there are some fantastic big time events coming up next year. And one of the big ones for me is, as we've spoken about, going to be the International TT event in April. So there will be a video coming on that very shortly, so please keep your eye on the channel for that. Again, that takes place on Saturday the 12th of April in Belgium. There will of course be the annual event at the Motorist, I am sure, and of course Simply Audi returns for 2025. Of course, in September, in the first weekend, we will see another running of Quattrophenia, the London to Brighton run, starting from the Duke's Head pub all the way down to Brighton Marina. It's crazy to think that this is going to be the 4th year in a row that we've held that, and it's always well attended and gets great feedback from Audi TT owners. Also making a return for 2025 is Springfest. And for those of you that don't know about Springfest, that is a car meet I hold in my back garden, and we can hold around 40 cars in the garden, and it will be ticket only. So if you're interested in coming along to Springfest over the summer, please do drop me a message at the channel. Those of you that follow the channel regularly will know this is the second of 3 TTs I own. And of course, the third TT, which is the black coupe, the project car, was obtained in the summer. Now that's currently being dismantled, but why don't we go and take a closer look at that to talk about what's coming up for that car next year, and also some of my upcoming projects for 2025. So here we are with the old friend, the black Project TT. And as you can see, most of the front end is now removed, as we've covered this in the slam panel removal video that was out just last month. Now, the next step for the Project TT is to remove the engine, because my nephew is coming over on Christmas Day of all days, and he's going to remove the engine. We're going to go live on Christmas Day on TikTok to show that engine removal, so please join us on there if you're at a loose end on Christmas Day afternoon. Once we've got the engine out, he believes that we might better salvage this, because the main problem with this car is that the valves and the pistons have come together and caused the engine to fail. So he believes replacing the valves and the camshafts, we might get away with it and save this engine. If we can get the engine going in this car once more, fantastic. I think we're going to put a new clutch in the car as well, just to make sure that we don't have to revisit that later, and also some more performance parts, suspension and brakes, and then I believe we may be taking it to the ring. If we can't fix the engine, we may do an engine swap and put a new power plant in this car. Again, all dependent on what we find with this engine. Failing all of that, the car may be broken for parts, because there's definitely a lot of donor parts I can find in here that will fit on the Roadster, and of course help me keep a few spares in place for my other cars and projects in the future. Other projects we've got coming up for next year include the bodywork on the Papaya, and also returning that to a true OEM configuration, removing the in-car entertainment that's been added, the rear parking sensors, and of course the rear view camera. All great projects, along with many of the other how-tos and fixes I'm sure that will come out of owning an Audi TT Mark 1 in 2025. So from my house to yours, Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I hope to see many of you at the upcoming Audi TT Mark 1 events in 2025. Thanks for watching, see you soon. Take care.